The Phantom Contact. The endless void of space stretched before the Calthuran Empire's 5th Expeditionary Fleet like a black ocean dotted with distant stars. Admiral Zorak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the mighty dreadnought Star Crusher, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. His fleet of 30 warships moved in perfect formation through the disputed frontier sectors, a demonstration of imperial power meant to remind the lesser species who truly ruled this corner of the galaxy. For 3 centuries, the Calthuran Empire had expanded unchecked. Their advanced plasma weaponry and quantum shields had conquered over 200 worlds, and their military doctrine had never encountered a force they couldn't overwhelm through superior numbers and firepower. The frontier worlds were their next target, rich in resources and populated by weak colonies that would barely resist imperial rule. Navigator Thais, a young officer with sharp eyes and quicker reflexes, monitored her sensor array with the dedication of someone trying to prove herself worthy of her position. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as dozens of crew members maintained their posts, confident in their technological superiority. They had no reason to suspect that everything they believed about their place in the universe was about to change. "Admiral," Thais called out, her voice cutting through the bridge's ambient noise. "I'm detecting an anomalous reading on the long-range sensors. Grid reference 445.7 by 892.3. She paused, studying her display with growing confusion. "Sir, the signature doesn't match anything in our databases." Admiral Zorak turned his attention to the main tactical display, his forearms crossed in a gesture of authority that had intimidated subordinates across 3 star systems. His reptilian features remained calm, but his golden eyes showed the sharp intelligence that had earned him command of the 5th Fleet. "Classification and distance?" "Unknown classification, sir. Distance approximately 50,000 kilometers off our starboard flank." Thais worked frantically at her controls, trying to make sense of the readings. "Admiral, the energy signature is unlike anything I've seen. It appears to be roughly destroyer class in size, but the power output fluctuates wildly. Sometimes it blazes like a small star, other times it barely registers above background radiation." Chief Engineer Malix, a grizzled veteran whose scales bore the scars of 3 major conflicts, approached the tactical station with heavy steps. His engineering expertise had kept the fleet operational through numerous campaigns, and his experience made his opinion valuable. "Admiral, I've been monitoring the readings from engineering. Whatever that vessel is using for propulsion, it's not following any known principles of physics. The energy patterns suggest some form of dimensional manipulation, but that's supposed to be impossible." The mysterious contact moved across their sensors like nothing they had ever encountered. It banked and turned as if flying through atmosphere rather than the vacuum of space, performed maneuvers that should have generated enough gravitational stress to crush any crew aboard, and occasionally seemed to simply fade from sensors entirely before reappearing in a completely different location. "Captain Varen," Admiral Zorak called to the commander of the scout ship Swift Talon. "Take your vessel and conduct a closer reconnaissance, but maintain a safe distance. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit the main fleet." Captain Varen acknowledged the order, and the Swift Talon broke formation, its sleek hull cutting through space toward the unknown contact. The scout ship was one of the fastest vessels in the Imperial fleet, equipped with the latest sensor technology and manned by some of their best pilots. If anyone could identify this mystery, it would be Varen's crew. Minutes passed in tense silence as the Swift Talon approached the anomalous vessel. Then Captain Varen's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with disbelief. "Admiral, you need to see this. Transmitting visual data now." The main display filled with an image that defied explanation. The unknown vessel appeared to be roughly the size of an Imperial destroyer, but its design was completely alien. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, sometimes solid and reflective, other times translucent as if it existed only partially in their dimension. Strange energy patterns danced across its surface, creating hypnotic displays of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some unfathomable heartbeat. "Attempt communication," Admiral Zorak ordered. "Standard Imperial protocols, demand identification and state of intent." The communication officer opened all channels, broadcasting the standard Imperial challenge in a dozen different languages and frequency ranges. For several minutes, there was no response. Then, without warning, words began to echo directly inside the minds of every crew member aboard every ship in the fleet. The voice was calm, measured, and carried an undertone of quiet authority that sent chills down their spines. "Turn back. This space is under our protection. You have no authority here." The bridge erupted in confused voices as crew members looked at each other in shock. Navigator Theiss checked her instruments frantically. "Sir, I'm detecting no transmission source." The words "just" appeared in our minds. "I've never seen anything like this." Admiral Zorak felt a chill of unease but forced his voice to remain steady. "Impossible. No known technology can transmit directly into consciousness. It must be some form of advanced neural broadcasting." He opened the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Zorak. Maintain formation and prepare for potential hostile contact. Whatever this technology is, we will not be intimidated." The Phantom vessel moved again, and this time its movement was so rapid that the sensors barely tracked it. In less than a second, it traversed 20,000 kilometers of space, appearing directly behind their formation near the heavy cruiser Iron Hammer. The massive warship, a veteran of dozens of battles, simply stopped. Not destroyed, not disabled, but completely silent. Its engines died, its weapons powered down, and its crew fell utterly quiet. "Iron Hammer, report status," Admiral Zorak demanded into his communicator. Silence answered him. "Iron Hammer, respond immediately." Captain Varen's voice came over the channel, tight with fear. "Admiral, I'm scanning the Iron Hammer. All systems show operational, but there's no life sign readings. It's like the entire crew just vanished, but the ship itself is completely undamaged." Before anyone could respond, the mystery ship moved again. This time, it appeared alongside the battle cruiser Stormbringer, and the same thing happened. Total system shutdown. Complete crew silence. The ship remained physically intact but utterly lifeless, drifting among the stars like a tomb. "Open fire," Admiral Zorak shouted, his calm finally cracking. "All batteries, target that vessel. Maximum firepower." The 5th Expeditionary Fleet unleashed everything in their arsenal. Plasma cannons that could melt through planetary crust fired in devastating volleys. Quantum torpedoes capable of cracking asteroid belts streaked through space. Gravitational disruptors that could tear apart the molecular bonds of any known material focused their energy beams on the Phantom ship. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon, and it converged on the mysterious vessel with precision that had been perfected through centuries of conquest. Every shot passed harmlessly through the target, as if it existed in some other dimension entirely. The Phantom ship remained unaffected, its strange hull continuing to pulse with those hypnotic energy patterns. It was as if they were firing at a ghost, a reflection that had no substance in their reality. Chief Engineer Malak stared at his readings in disbelief. "Admiral, our weapons aren't missing the target. They're passing through it. Whatever that vessel is, it's not entirely present in our dimensional space." The ghost ship's response was swift and terrifying. Before their eyes, it began to split, dividing into multiple identical copies. 7 perfect replicas of the original vessel spread out across space, each one moving with the same impossible fluidity. They darted toward different ships in the Imperial formation, and wherever they made contact, the same thing happened. Ships went dark, crews vanished without a trace. The vessels remained physically undamaged but completely empty of life. "Fleet status report," Admiral Zorak demanded, watching his tactical display as ship after ship went silent. "Sir, we've lost contact with 12 vessels," Navigator Theiss reported, her voice shaking. "The Crimson Blade, Stormcaller, Iron Fist, and 9 others. All systems show green but no crew responses. It's happening faster than we can track." In desperation, Admiral Zorak activated the fleet's emergency beacon, broadcasting a warning that would echo across Imperial space for days to come. "All Imperial forces, this is Admiral Zorak of the 5th Expeditionary Fleet. Avoid coordinates 445.7 by 892.3. We have encountered unknown hostile forces employing technology beyond our understanding. Classification, Phantom-class threat level. Immediate withdrawal from sector recommended." As the surviving ships began to retreat in disorder, the 7 copies of the mystery vessel consolidated back into a single craft. It hung motionless in space for a moment, as if watching their desperate flight before beginning to fade from their sensors entirely. Not departing or moving away, but simply ceasing to exist in detectable reality. The retreat of the 5th Expeditionary Fleet marked the first time in 3 centuries that Imperial forces had been forced to withdraw from a sector. As they fled through hyperspace, carrying word of their encounter back to Imperial Command, none of them knew that they had just experienced humanity's first demonstration of power in this region of space. The Ghost ship and its impossible technology were about to change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the balance of power among the stars, the Ghost Protocol revealed. 3 days after the devastating encounter, Imperial Command had mobilized the largest battle fleet in their history. Admiral Zorak found himself aboard the super dreadnought Eternal Dominion, flagship of a force that included over 200 warships, supported by carrier groups and mobile space stations. The assembled armada represented nearly 1/3 of the Empire's total military might, a show of force unprecedented in recent galactic history. Fleet Admiral Kairos, Supreme Commander of Imperial Naval Forces, stood before the massive tactical display showing their target coordinates. His presence aboard the fleet spoke to the seriousness with which Imperial Command viewed this threat. Admiral Zorak, your report describes technology that should not exist. Dimensional phasing, consciousness manipulation, selective crew extraction. These capabilities would revolutionize warfare itself. I understand your skepticism, sir, Admiral Zorak replied, his voice steady despite the memory of those empty ships. I would not believe it myself if I had not witnessed it. But I assure you, whatever force we encountered possesses abilities far beyond our current understanding. Navigator Theiss, now serving as Senior Intelligence Officer for the expanded fleet, studied the long-range sensor displays with intense focus. Her experience with the Phantom ship had earned her a battlefield promotion and the responsibility of tracking any anomalous readings. Admiral, I'm detecting multiple contacts at the edge of sensor range. The energy signatures match what we encountered before, but there are far more of them now. The main display updated to show dozens of contacts scattered throughout the system, their positions forming a loose perimeter around several inhabited worlds. Unlike the single vessel from their previous encounter, this appeared to be an organized fleet presence design, to protect the civilian populations below. Analysis suggests at least 40 vessels, Chief Engineer Malox reported from his new position as Fleet Technical Advisor. But sir, the readings are still fluctuating in that same impossible pattern. Sometimes they register as massive dreadnoughts, other times as tiny fighters. It's as if they exist in a state of quantum uncertainty. Fleet Admiral Kairos studied the tactical situation with the calculating mind that had won him victories across half the galaxy. Maintain formation and approach at standard speed. If they want to communicate, they'll make themselves known. If they want to fight, we'll give them the battle they're looking for. The massive Imperial fleet advanced in perfect formation, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. As they entered the outer edge of the Mystery Fleet's perimeter, the Phantom contacts began to move, converging on their position with that same impossible speed and maneuverability that had shocked the 5th Fleet days earlier. Then, without warning, space itself seemed to shimmer and bend. The Phantom contacts became visible as dozens of vessels materialized around the Imperial fleet, their hulls shifting from translucent energy fields into solid metallic reality. These ships were unlike anything in the Imperial databases, sleek, organic-looking craft that seemed grown rather than built, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that pulsed with soft blue light. A communication channel opened, and this time the voice came through their normal audio systems rather than directly into their minds. The speaker had a distinctly different vocal pattern from what they were used to, with subtle inflections that suggested a completely alien linguistic background. Imperial Fleet, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Human Defense Coalition. You are entering Protex, TED space. State your intentions. The word human sent a ripple of surprise through the bridge crew. In their 3 centuries of expansion, the Caltheran Empire had never encountered this species. No records existed of any civilization calling itself human in their extensive databases of conquered and contacted species. Fleet Admiral Kairos activated the communication system, his voice carrying the authority of absolute imperial power. I am Fleet Admiral Kairos of the Caltheran Empire. These worlds are designated for Imperial colonization under Section 7 of the Galactic Expansion Protocols. Withdraw your vessels immediately or face the consequences of interfering with Imperial operations. The consequences? Captain Vasquez's voice carried a note of what sounded almost like amusement. Admiral, I think you're under a misapprehension about the balance of power here. 3 days ago, your scouts encountered one of our patrol ships. Today, you're facing our full defensive fleet. Would you like a demonstration of what that means? Before Fleet Admiral Kiros could respond, the human vessels began to move in ways that defied every principle of physics the Empire understood. They flowed through space like schools of fish through water, banking and turning with perfect precision despite the vacuum of space offering no medium for such maneuvers. Some ships seemed to phase in and out of visibility, appearing solid one moment and translucent the next. Dr. James Chen, speaking from the flagship of the human fleet, addressed the Imperial forces with the calm confidence of someone explaining basic scientific principles. What you're witnessing is the result of dimensional phase manipulation technology. Our ships exist simultaneously in multiple dimensional states, allowing us to interact with your reality when we choose while remaining immune to conventional attacks when we don't. To demonstrate, one of the human vessels approached the Imperial formation and passed directly through the hull of a heavy cruiser without causing any damage. The crew of the cruiser watched in amazement as the Phantom ship materialized inside their engineering section, its hull occupying the same space as their own ship without any physical interaction. Chief Engineer Malik stared at his readings in disbelief. Sir, they're violating the fundamental laws of physics. Matter cannot occupy the same space, but somehow they're doing exactly that. The laws of physics as you understand them, Dr. Chen corrected gently. Humanity has learned to think beyond the conventional three-dimensional limitations that constrain most species. When you're fighting for survival against overwhelming odds, you learn to be creative. Captain Vasquez's voice took on a more serious tone as she continued the explanation. For 200 years, humanity has been watching the Caltheran Empire expand across the galaxy. We've seen how you treat conquered species, how you strip worlds of their resources and enslave their populations. We decided long ago that when you finally reached our territory, we would be ready. Ambassador Kira Santos joined the conversation, her diplomatic training evident in her measured words. The colonies in this sector are under human protection. They came to us seeking refuge from imperial expansion, and we granted them sanctuary. These worlds are not uninhabited territories waiting for conquest. They are established communities of free beings who have chosen their own path. Fleet Admiral Kairos felt the foundation of his worldview shifting as he tried to process what he was hearing. Impossible. No single species could develop technology capable of challenging imperial might. We have conquered 200 worlds across 3 centuries. And in those 3 centuries, humanity has been preparing, Colonel Marcus Webb added from his command ship. Every battle you fought, every world you conquered, every technological advancement you made, we were watching and learning. We studied your tactics, analyzed your weaknesses, and developed countermeasures. The Ghost Protocol you've encountered is just one aspect of our defensive capabilities. To demonstrate their point, the human fleet began a coordinated display of their abilities. Ships phased in and out of dimensional states, appeared and disappeared at will, and performed maneuvers that made the Imperial vessels look clumsy and primitive by comparison. Some human ships split into multiple copies like the Phantom vessel from the first encounter, while others seemed to grow larger and smaller at will. Your weapons cannot harm us when we're in phase shift mode, Dr. Chen explained as Imperial sensor operators watched their targeting systems fail to maintain locks on the shifting targets. But our weapons can affect you regardless of our dimensional state. We can disable your ships without destroying them, extract your crews without harming them, or simply render your technology inoperative. As if to prove his point, several Imperial vessels throughout the formation suddenly went dark, their crews finding themselves transported to empty space in environmental suits before being safely recovered by human rescue ships. The disabled vessels remained intact but completely powerless, floating helplessly among the stars. Navigator Theiss watched the displays with growing understanding. Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. They could have eliminated the entire fleet by now, but they're demonstrating restraint. This is a show of force, not an act of aggression. Captain Vasquez confirmed her observation. We don't seek conquest or domination. We want coexistence and peace, but we will not allow innocent colonies to be enslaved or destroyed. The worlds in this sector have chosen freedom, and humanity will defend that choice. The negotiations that followed would reshape the balance of power in that entire region of space. Ambassador Santos outlined the terms clearly. Imperial forces would withdraw from the protected sectors, acknowledge the sovereignty of the refugee colonies, and establish formal diplomatic relations with the Human Defense Coalition. In return, humanity would share certain non-military technologies and establish trade agreements that would benefit both civilizations. Fleet Admiral Kairos, faced with technology he could not counter and a force he could not defeat, made the only rational choice available. Very well. The Caltheran Empire recognizes the territorial claims of the Human Defense Coalition. We will withdraw our forces and establish proper diplomatic channels. As the massive Imperial fleet began its withdrawal, Captain Vasquez's voice carried across space one final time. Admiral, you should know that this sector represents only a small portion of human-protected space. We've been busy for the past 2 centuries. The age of unchallenged Imperial expansion is over. The human ships began to fade from view as their dimensional phase technology rendered them invisible once again. But before they disappeared entirely, the Imperial crews caught glimpses of massive structures in the distance, space stations and orbital platforms that suggested a civilization far more advanced and extensive than anyone had imagined. Word of the encounter would spread throughout the galaxy, carried by the retreating Imperial forces and broadcast across dozens of communication networks. The legend of humanity's Ghost Protocol would inspire hope in oppressed colonies and cause sleepless nights for aggressive empires everywhere. In the space of a few days, the entire galactic balance of power had shifted, and everyone would have to reconsider their place in a universe where humans had revealed themselves to be far more than anyone had ever suspected. The phantom ships that had seemed so mysterious and threatening were revealed to be guardians, protectors of the innocent using technology born from creativity, determination, and the uniquely human refusal to accept defeat. As the stars continued their eternal dance across the cosmos, a new chapter in galactic history had begun, one where humanity would stand as defenders of freedom and champions of those who sought to determine their own destiny among the stars.